Hi, I'm Jason Self. I am a specialist at CBT, and I am here with Sandy D'Souza, who is the Director of Channel Partnerships for Fiix. Maybe we can start by identifying and maybe defining what a CMMS is and who typically uses this kind of tool.
Yeah, great question, Jason. CMMS, long acronym, stands for Computerized Maintenance Management System. Interestingly enough, it's a category of software typically used in the industrial sector, although it can be used really in any industry where maintenance of equipment is desired or required. It's been around for many decades. So effectively, customers typically use CMMS to track, manage, schedule, organize all of the activities related to the maintenance of equipment, or more broadly speaking, assets, and plays a pivotal role in terms of equipment reliability and overall reliability of infrastructure.
Okay. Well, Fiix has been in the CMMS business for 10 years. What are the biggest changes you've seen in the industry, and where do you see things going in the future?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I'll kind of start from a broad area, and then we can go a little bit more narrow. But overall in business software, I come from a background. Spent 10 years in consumer electronics prior to joining Fix back in 2017, and we're witnessing this phenomenon where all categories of business software were doing a couple of things. Number one, um, many software applications were beginning to move to the cloud. Along with moving to the
Mhm.
cloud, we saw kind of this tsunami of focus on really, how do we make software a little bit easier for end users to use and adopt. So rather than being, strictly centric around a business process, the software really kind of got flipped on its head and was very centric around, how do we provide a great end user experience to all the various stakeholders that touch the software. If you think about all the titans in the industry, Salesforce.com comes to mind, NetSuite comes to mind. You think about HR applications, Workday comes to mind, and they all applied kind of these, cloud first, end user first, mobile optimized principles to their respective software categories. Now, what was really interesting, when we decided to become, a multi-tenant software as a service, cloud first, cloud only, quite frankly, application back in 2012, we were really the first of its kind when it came to industrial software, and in particular when it came to maintenance management applications. So it was really a game changer in the industry. Now, of course, fast forward in the last 8 to 10 years, certainly many industrial applications entering the market, all attempting to fit kind of a similar mold. Again, like how do you take processes which may have been accomplished in the past on paper, pen, Excel, or some kind of difficult to use legacy on-prem system, and how do you apply that in the industrial sector? So broad strokes, we've seen kind of those same principles apply in industrial software, and very specifically in CMMS. And I think the next wave is really going to be around, okay, now that the end users have adopted this new software and they've adopted these new processes, how can I fully integrate this business process with the rest of my organization to really start to drive important and increased levels of change and ultimately growth for the company.
Sure. And for customers, I think, and for our clients, the question that they would be asking is, what are some of the first benefits that they would see when implementing Fix? And then over time, how would you expect that the Fix program or the Fix suite would continue to drive value for the customers or for the clients?
Yeah, I'll be a little bit provocative, right? So software in and of itself won't necessarily achieve results on its own. And what I mean by that is, generally speaking, customers who adopt Fix, they can see, a 10 to 15% reduction in maintenance costs. And I think, broadly speaking, if you have a great maintenance program in your environment, you're gonna see some of these benefits. Now, I kind of think of, the software is the enabler of a great process. So if you're an organization that's got a great process and that process is implemented, it could be in Excel and you could be doing a fantastic job with that. Of course, any technology you adopt needs to in my opinion, allow that process to really shine through and allow the users to basically accomplish what they need to accomplish. In other words, the technology almost needs to get out of the way of the process or be a bit of
Mhm.
an enabler. And so as a result, we believe, and we've kind of seen it. We've got 3,000 customers around the globe. We're in over 90 countries, and so the results have kind of proven themselves out. But when organizations adopt CMMS software effectively, and I think Fiix is certainly one of the easiest, if not the easiest, to adopt and to use from an end user perspective, you'll see some pretty tremendous results. And usually those results, kind of can be derived in a couple of categories. Number one, simply adoption of a mobile solution for technicians who are out in the field who can, on the fly, see what work is assigned to them, close out work, see what parts are on the shelf, understand what needs to be ordered, kind of do all of that in real time while they're walking between jobs. Certainly there's a massive opportunity to save time and save cost as a result, that way. But of course, it's not uncommon where organizations will deploy software. They may be starting with 70% of their maintenance work being reactive, but over time, as they implement their desired processes, and of course, software helps enable some of that. It's not uncommon for that to be flipped in the inverse. So going from
Wow.
70% reactive to 70% preventative. And of course, every organization, depending on the equipment, depending on what goods are being produced and so forth, that shift to preventative maintenance can have absolutely massive savings when it comes to cost. So there's a number of benefits. I kind of think, hey, the software is not necessarily the silver bullet, if you will. I'm a little bit biased because I do work for a software company, but really the software is going to be that enabler for a process
Sure.
that is already good, is already well designed. And of course, as we look across the industry, we work with so many talented operations folks, maintenance folks who have great processes, and we kind of are the final step, if you will, where we can digitize and optimize and really streamline some of the processes.
Yeah. Wow. So, Rockwell acquired Fix in December of 2020, and it's Rockwell's first software as a service offering. Why did Rockwell see Fix as a good fit for their offerings? And why do Rockwell customers benefit for the integrations or for Rockwell and Fix becoming together here to serve their needs?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And I don't know if there's a single line answer to that. It's certainly a multi pronged opportunity, I think, for customers and businesses to really take advantage of, and I'll use kind of a buzzword here, but the synergy that exists between, a 100-plus-year-old titan in the industrial automation space in
Mhm.
Rockwell, combined with a relatively young company in Fix, who was really good at tech, really good at working with customers to help them be successful and implement their processes. And I kind of think of it as, you kind of marry best practices from the industrial tech space, which is super, super important and will continue to be important. And you marry that with exceptional capabilities when it comes to software. So really connecting the plant floor to the top floor, if you will, when you think about OT and IT. Certainly it's a concept that's talked about a lot in analyst reports and so forth. But I think bringing together the shop floor with the technology is hard. You need the right mix of technology, skill sets, and know-how to do it effectively. So as I think about why what makes Rockwell and Fix so special from a company perspective, from a capability perspective, I think it's this. Like Fix has always done really well when it comes to hey, how do we manage your maintenance related workflows? How do we manage your assets? How do we enable the teams with technology? Of course, Rockwell, best in class when it comes to industrial automation, best in class when it comes to acquisition and analysis of all the data that exists on the shop floor. So really the next frontier is, how do you turn all of this data, all of this know-how from the shop floor and turn it into not just insights, because I think there's a lot of insights that can be derived already in the industry, but how do you go from data on the shop floor to action? And we kind of provide that perfect closed loop, if you will, where you could be reading sensor values off equipment. We can run data science algorithms against that in real time and automatically trigger a work order, have it routed to the right individual, and bringing all of these systems together. So as you think about what kind of where we are today and certainly where the ongoing benefits will continue to evolve. It's really around combining kind of best of breed capabilities on the shop floor with best of breed capabilities from a software and a workflow perspective, bringing those things together and ultimately um, you know enabling actions from this data. But I think what's important is doing it in a way that's seamless, cost effective. You don't need to hire a team of consultants to go and get your operation set up, but really, again, putting the power of these tools in the hands of the end user, which I think is really the both the short and long term promise of what we'll do as an organization.
Sure, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sandy, as more organizations are looking at CMMS solutions for their organization, what are some of the key considerations that they should be looking for in a CMMS solution?
Yeah, I think the technology is important, and I'll touch on that, I guess, in a second here. Where I've seen organizations succeed the most with Fix in particular is I touched on it a little bit earlier, but they generally have a good idea of what their desired outcome is from an operations perspective. I think that's super important. Number two, they've got a handle around their data and their information. The old saying, right? Garbage in, garbage out. You can have the
Mhm.
best software, but if you don't have the right data and you don't have the right understanding of how that will ultimately enable your organization, you may not receive or achieve the desired results that you want. And I think number three is super important. It's all around change management. If you think about an organization that's done maintenance on, paper, pen, Excel, or some kind of old system from, the 80s or 90s, that's a that process has been ingrained up and down that department. It's not a bad thing, right? Like you're probably doing things well, you've done well as an organization, but how do you now achieve kind of that next level or that next layer of results? And what we found is that exercise in orchestrating change inside a company is hard. It can be done, but it's something to be very mindful of as you look to embark on any change where you take a process and really transform it into something that's done a little bit differently. So as a result, we tend to work very, very closely on implementations, not so much on, hey, the software itself is hard to set up and configure, but it's more about working with our clients on guiding them through how do we migrate data, how do we train end users, how do we on the job work with end users so that they can get comfortable using the new tools, and then how do you ultimately have a set up in a process where as you onboard new individuals, as you have turnover and so forth, how do you manage that as part of this new process? So I think those are very foundational and key elements. And then as you think about kind of part two to that, the software is, of course, is very important, and I kind of think of it in a couple of categories. Number one, being incredibly focused on what does this mean for my end users? Does it make their life easier? Or does it make their life harder? If it makes their life harder, nobody's going to use your software, and you can have the best shiny new software, but if nobody uses it, you're certainly not going to get the results that you're hoping to get out of it. So I think that's uber important. But the number two, as you think about software, I would think of software in the term of a platform. So yes, you maybe look at a best of breed maintenance application, which we certainly are. As part of Rockwell, I think what you'll see coming into the future is this best of breed maintenance tool plugging in to all of your other best of breed applications so that, as we talked about earlier, you can really turn the CMMS into the actionable endpoint for all of the data that exists on the shop floor. So I think, being end user centric, very important. Very important also to have a system that can seamlessly interact with whatever other tools, technologies that you choose to adopt that make the most sense for your business. I think the last thing anybody wants to do is deploy software that it's great on its own, but then the moment you go to integrate and interact and interoperate with other systems, it doesn't really work very well. And that may not be a problem on day one, but I suspect as you get into your program, maybe year two, year three, year five, you're certainly going to want to take advantage of some of those capabilities. And I think it's important to ensure that whatever software you adopt certainly gives you that flexibility.
Well, Sandy, thanks for your time today. I know that our viewers, including myself, have a much better understanding of Fix and how it can be implemented in organizations to help their day-to-day maintenance. And look forward to talking to you again.
Jason, thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to hopefully being back at some point in the future.
All right.